Welcome, Star Warriors. Today we're going to be discussing some comments by Rian Johnson, since I've sort of, not addressed anything he said in the public about The Last Jedi. He's got to say something when you're sticking a microphone in front of his face, right? But a lot of the stuff I think that he has said is utter bullshit. But let's get on with it. Here's one statement by him. Like you said, every fan has a list of stuff they want a Star Wars movie to be, and they don't want a Star Wars movie to be. You're going to find very few fans out there whose lists line up. Okay, that's the end of the quote. And while this is mostly true, people have their ideas, and they have their specific things that they want, That goes for any movie. It's not something that is special to Star Wars. So that's my first contention to what he said, is like, every fan has a list of stuff they want a Star Wars movie to be. Sure, they also have a list of stuff they want a Star Trek movie to be. They also have a list of stuff that they want a DC EU movie to be. They also have a list of stuff they want the Titanic. They want a boat in Titanic. That they want a boat. They want it to crash at some point, and they want there to be a big accident at the end or something like that. And that's not unreasonable. Most of the stuff that people were complaining about was the narrative or the script being illogical in the movie. Here's a character that is important, has been established as important for 2 movies now, Snoke, who at the end of the second movie, it seems like they put as much time in developing his history as they did in developing his name. A 5-letter name. Well, he's probably got about a 5-word history. So people were coming up with those theories because it was a logical thing to do. This guy is important. As far as anyone knew, he popped out of thin air, took over the most prominent position within the remnants of the Empire. You would think a guy who has achieved all that would have, his past would come into play. But no. He's killed off as if he doesn't matter, which, I guess is apropos because he actually doesn't matter. He doesn't matter. It's not like there was this big power vacuum after he died either. Someone stepped right into his shoes. So, people want their movies to be logical, and they'll be happy with that. It didn't matter what you made his backstory as long as it made sense. That's what they want their movies to make sense. They want to be able to go home from that movie and say, hey, I didn't have to make up a backstory for this character myself because what they did in the script made perfect sense. And if it was just Snoke, that would be bad enough. But it's obvious that in this film, it was a pattern of just saying, you're villains. They're just there. They just popped up out of thin air because Phasma, who was like this character that I thought was as badass as Darth Vader, when I first saw her in the Force Awakens trailer. And you didn't learn much about her then, but you did learn some stuff about her. You did learn some stuff. In this movie, you learned absolutely nothing. She could have been replaced by any random stormtrooper in a helmet, and it wouldn't have changed this movie one bit. We didn't even learn how she survived the destruction of Starkiller Base. These things are important when you have a narrative. It's important that when you add 1 and 1, that the answer is 2. What idiot would ever say, 1 plus 1, it doesn't matter what 1 plus 1 is. It doesn't matter. Then, people are going to have something to say about it, and that's kind of what happened with this film. The Last Jedi was like a golden egg. And largely because of Luke Skywalker being in it. You could say that Mark Hamill was the golden egg, or Luke Skywalker was the golden egg. just an iconic, huge character. Probably the biggest one in Star Wars other than, Darth Vader. You would think Rian Johnson would be beholden to Lucasfilm and fans and everybody to get that character right. Or, if you can't get him right, don't use him. I mean, how hard is that? And I'm not going to, completely blame this on Rian Johnson. I know I have been, calling him out as if he was the only one involved with killing off Luke Skywalker that way. I don't think he was. But I think he was of the mind that, I can't please the fans. Some of them are going to want Luke Skywalker to die. Some of them are going to want Luke Skywalker to live. And so I just had to listen to myself. I don't think it was going to make it or break it if for anyone who was watching this movie if Luke Skywalker actually lived through the film. I also think that Rian gave him too large a role, for one thing. I think he was of the mind that if he didn't kill off Luke Skywalker, that he would overshadow the protagonist of the story, Rey. Right? Well, yeah, of course. If you give him that big of a role, if he's on screen as much as he was, yeah, he's going to overshadow Rey if you don't kill him. He's going to overshadow Rey if you do kill him. And that's the part of the thing about his movie is it didn't have much balance. Luke Skywalker should have been in there, but he overshadowed Snoke, he overshadowed Phasma, and I don't see why. The character was written that way. This was a character they could have gotten a lot of mileage out of. Freaking Mark Hamill would have done it. He would have done several other movies, I'm sure. I know he would have done one other one, but he probably would have liked to make cameos in further movies where, he's not in them much, but he's in them and he has this presence and he's drawing in fans, because the guy was an extremely popular character. A lot of people considered him to be the be-all and end-all of Star Wars. So he's drawing in a lot of money for Disney, and they sort of just, they sort of made the character into a wet noodle. It was like you give Rian Johnson the golden egg, and instead of polishing and putting it on his pedestal, he chucks it against the wall to see how many directions it'll splash, and he says that's better art. There are such things as movies where fans aren't, so divided on, where they just considered either a really good movie or a really bad movie. And to blame the fans for why he didn't make a universally accepted movie is kind of, it should be beneath him, I would think, There are movies out there that just aren't good. There are movies out there that are good. There are movies out there that aren't universally accepted. There are movies out there that are universally accepted. What Star Wars fans want is for the writers and directors and producers to be logical in decisions they make, to make a balanced movie, and then they'll be happy with the storytelling as long as, they're already fans of the franchise. That's all they want. They don't necessarily want you to do exactly what they think it should be, or whatever their theories are. No one was looking for their Snoke theory to be true. They were just making Snoke theory in the absence of information. That's all that people were making. In the absence of information, they were making Rey Skywalker theories. In the absence of information, they were making Rey Solo theories. It wasn't the fact that she wasn't a Skywalker or Solo that people said, I don't like this. Some people, that was a factor. But for the most part, that's not where you're getting all your backlash from. The backlash basically is a result of writers, producers, directors relying on special effects and explosions to carry the movie instead of developing a coherent narrative. And it's really sad because all the work that is put into special effects, you would think it would be easier for one person to write a coherent script, that holds together and it's balanced, than it would be for an entire team of people to create all the wonderful special effects and explosions that you see in these Star Wars films. So it's kind of like maybe not have the same guy who wrote it do the directing also. If this is like the best that can be done. we had this example 10 years ago or so where George Lucas tried to do everything, and people weren't happy with it. And then George Lucas ended up selling the entire franchise to Disney, and we thought, hey man, Disney's got even more resources than George Lucas had, so they will hire people, and they will have teams of people that will make sure that you can get a balanced story that's coherent and easy to read, easy to watch, and it's great fun. Instead, you have Rian Johnson writing and directing, and who knows what else he did. Well, that is what it is. You guys have a great day.